usually it says it's connecting and it already has. So um, we'll just
Okay.
pretend it is.
Okay.
So I'm so happy you're here. Just really, really sweet, especially to look into your eyes and know that,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, it was a huge, huge day for me when we last connected. And I was full of all the fizzing energy of my book launch and the big party that my brother was throwing. And your presence, I remember you coming right up to me afterwards, and I almost felt like I knew you already. I was like, who
Mm-hmm.
is this woman? And what do we have
Yeah.
to do together? So, welcome, Leah. It is a joy to
Thank
have
you. Thank you. I feel the same about you. It's not easy to be vulnerable in writing your story.
you.
And so it takes a lot of courage. So it was very beautiful to be in that presence with you to share that.
Thank you. Thank you for holding that space. And now we get to hold the space for you today. So I'm going to do a little intro. And I know intros never, they scratch the surface of who we are in this world. But just so that the listeners that are already
Mhm.
joining know a little bit of background. Johansen, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Say it.
Well, if we were, in Europe, Johansen, but in the
Johansen.
EN, Johansen, the EN makes it Danish, but in the United States and in Minnesota, we'd say Johansson.
Okay, well, I like Johansen, so I'm going to say that. So today I am joined by Leah Johansen, a family medicine physician trained in integrative and functional medicine. She has a background that spans genetics, Ayurveda, and patient safety research. And I also think you've done some body work and massage work. So there is such a beautiful um, coming together of opposite approaches to medicine that I experienced through what I've learned about you over the last 5 months. But before becoming an MD, Leah spent over a decade working hands on with bodies from elite athletes to presidents, which gives her a rare fluid
Mhm.
of both science and intuition. She also brings humor, movement, and risk into the conversation through improv, which is so fun. I love that you do that. Ultra marathons and a very fast motorcycle, I think I read something about. While asking a deceptively simple question: what if the greatest epidemic isn't disease, but a disconnection from our own worth? I mean, that's a really, really juicy, juicy topic.
Yeah.
So, Leah's work lives at the intersection of biology, belief, belonging, and that really potent question. And I'm really excited and curious to see where today's conversation takes us. So,
Mhm.
welcome, Leah. I want to begin
Mhm.
because I know you're a physician, you see patients
Mhm.
all the time, and I imagine many of your patients arrive carrying the hope that you're going to fix them. And I'm all
Mhm.
about unfixed. When they're coming in with what's wrong with me, and sometimes for years. So, was there a moment in your practice when you realized that fixing wasn't always the most honest or healing frame? And or when you started to really feel a shift around what healing looked like for you?
This is such a big question, especially with, I think, the epidemic of all the autoimmune diseases that are coming forward. This one of the biggest things that I have realized in the last 10 years since practicing and studying is that we as the host, if if our belief system, if our mind don't feel like we belong or that we're not good enough or we're unloved, we compromise ourselves as the host to allow an infectious disease to find that weak spot and turn that on as a signal to say something is out of balance. So, when you're emotionally out of balance, whether you have a lot of anxiety or depression, insomnia, these are all signals that your body is saying. So, my job, I feel like, has been more so to help people understand what individually those signals are for you.
Mm,
So, the more that I study Ayurveda. So I've studied Western MD, traditional, but I've always been integrated functional medicine, which is the root cause. But now that I'm going another layer into Ayurveda and Taoism, Taoism is more the energetic field, really looking at that level, and then the physical side, but also the deeper layers, I think spiritually and emotionally. Ayurveda breaks down individual variability, I think, in a very clean way. And so you can, the more that you understand yourself, then if you're what your constitution is, then when you're going into depression, you really need to know how to manage that versus someone who's going into anxiety. So all of the treatments are going to be individualized. So
Yeah.
my role though is just to help people understand who they are, what their genetics are, what their expression of those genetics are, your constitution, and how that changes in the season that you're in, the location where you're living, how those things are all influenced. If that makes
Yes, yes, I love that because the environment that we are in, the context is so important. And I think a lot of these, even these medical studies, are removing a really important thing, which is context. And context is everything.
yeah.
I have so I'll just use myself as a guinea pig.
Yeah.
So when I turned 22, I was diagnosed with autoimmune Graves' disease.
Hmm.
What I did with my little Miss Fix It mentality back then was, and we I grew up in the New Age household, so we had Louise Hay books all over the shelves, and if you change your mind, you change your body.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
took, which for me and my underdeveloped psyche, what I took that to mean was that this was all my fault, and that
Yeah.
I could control everything more, then I would get better. And so for me, there's a really tricky line between recognizing the value of and of the context of our psyche and our thoughts, and really acknowledging how much those are interwoven into our physiology, and also recognizing, really truly, for me, what I needed, my psyche needed, was to surrender. That was where the greatest healing was. And by pursuing the, like, how do I fix myself and how do I fix my thoughts, I was actually becoming more hypervigilant and more sick and more aggressive, really, towards myself, because I thought it was all my fault. So how do you distinguish that when you're working with patients?
This is so good because I read your book and it was so beautiful to hear because I love people's stories, right? This so the disease is an opportunity again for you to understand your deepest layers that are maybe not allowing you to be in your highest form or expression. So if the thought that for you came up that it's my fault, that could have been ingrained in you your whole life and it's finally presenting, especially considering the pregnancy with your mom.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and that she might have had a guilt that it's her fault because she got pregnant, with your biological father, that this could have not even been yours. Because I
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
you grew up in such a loving home from your father and your mother, but the biological father, that seed, I hope I'm not breaking up here.
It is. It's all of a sudden our connection is really wonky. Are you getting a clear connection from me, or is it
I
jittery?
think
This happens sometimes.
I think that yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a disconnect as well. A little bit unstable.
Okay,
I
hold
can
on
see
one second.
you. Yeah.
Hang tight, everyone. Yeah, hang tight one second. I'm going to switch my internet and we'll see if this gets better. This happens. So, everyone,
Okay.
patience, please.
Mhm. Oh,
Aha. Okay.
okay.
Are we better?
Okay. I think this is better.
Okay, good.
Okay. So
We've got a
I
little
hope I can.
snowstorm out there, so
Oh,
contributing.
and it's my favorite thing to be
Sorry,
is
so back up.
inside.
Give us a little,
Okay.
go back about a minute or two in what you were sharing.
Okay. So I hope you don't mind me being so frank, but I'm openly saying this because it's like in the book
Hmm.
about your birth. So if at 22, which a lot of stuff starts coming forward in our 20s, our teenagers, our 20s, and then you're going to see it again in perimenopause because hormones are true serums.
Mm-hmm.
LH and FSH as they increase in perimenopause, they're gonna and your as your hormones, your testosterone, estradiol, progesterone go low. These are gonna that LH and FSH are true serum. So you're gonna see a lot of people digging into their deepest fears, worries, and traumas, opportunities in their life. You're gonna see that around perimenopause and around when they're young, kind of hormonal age. So just
Yeah.
because this is like a normal thing. So I want to say this that I think that opportunity for autoimmune and infectious disease, if that was the question that came up for you, that I it's my fault, that may have been very deeply ingrained in you, whether it but it could have come in utero, like
Hmm.
unintentionally from your mom. Your mom seems like an amazing, beautiful human. She is like just I feel this from her when I saw her, and I just know she is, and I know your dad was. I just can feel this, everyone, and your biological father always felt like that too when I was reading the book. And so, but if your mom had any sense of guilt, like it's my fault that I maybe did something wrong, you
Hmm.
could have had that seed placed in you in your DNA in your expression, then that could have been carried for you. So it could sit in there, and at some point in your life, it could come up because if you're someone who is sensitive, which I think you are a highly sensitive person, and I think
Hmm.
that this is a gift. That this is the question that you posed for this. What if the very thing you can't fix is the thing that saves us? For when I think about that for a lot of people that are highly sensitive, I am also someone that's too. I'm so sensitive, I can pick up the energy of a room. I can get a feel of what is going on with someone versus before they say anything. And
Hmm.
so this can be tricky to navigate because you can feel everything and you can feel like it's yours. And you
Yeah.
can feel and you can't tell the difference. That's like before I understood what it was. And so going back to that time when you're highly sensitive, you it may have wanted to bubble up and come out that this belief system that you weren't enough. And so the idea of surrendering is actually the best thing that you can do because then it's not about you fixing.
Yeah.
It isn't. It's about you actually letting go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that's where the truth and you can and then you're balanced. So in Ayurveda, now your constitution your can realign what they call dosha, your vata, pitta, and kapha, what they call dosha. This constitution is that expression of your genetic that can be a little bit more imbalanced now that you surrender to any limiting beliefs that is deep in your system.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. So it's for me in particular, it really was, and it always has been about surrendering. But that's not necessarily the message for everyone, I guess is
Yeah.
what I hear you saying. So
Yeah.
if my core message was around this feeling of that it's my fault, then you're right. Surrender is the act, the antithesis. It's the antidote of
Yep.
that. How do you, though, work with patients? Because, I mean, essentially, whenever you say, well, this is this thought that you have, or this is this predisposition that you have, and that's what's essentially causing the disease, how do you
Mhm.
get around them not interpreting that as like, oh shit, it's my fault? Like how do you speak to them?
Yeah, the biggest I think this is the most important thing anyone can do is the practice of non-judgment. So, number 1 is, like, getting them to just see things objectively. This is what may be arising. The stress response, but it's also an unconscious pattern of your nervous system too. So you have to just have compassion. So teaching people to have compassion and non-judgment, just like they would someone else, the ultimate for yourself.
Yeah.
So
And are
even
you
if,
able to
yeah,
do that as a medical doctor? Because I mean, like, people are like, I don't know, do they go in there and they want to hear about compassion or do they want a pill?
so if they're coming to me, like, they're already on a different level usually, and
Okay.
because I don't practice in I was practicing at a naturopathic clinic most recently, and now I'm doing a different form, a membership base. So the people that are going to coming to me are very open-minded. They want to really dig into the limiting beliefs. They want to be in their highest state. They want
Mhm.
to age with grace. I want to keep them out of nursing homes and be independent. I want to reverse disease. So that's, we're someone, I feel like if they found me, they're already like at an open mindedness because that's where I am. Like, we may not be a good fit if they don't want to go there. But for me, though, also like knowing how to get into someone because, so not all, like, even constitutions like to hear it about how to fix. So like sometimes you have to that's where getting people to find their own answers and not always coming from me because you're going to know more so than I will about what deeply do you need. I really encourage people to listen to themselves. I am a guide like helping them to ask the questions, but I really want them to help to see their inner strength and resilience to
Yeah.
be unwavering. Mhm.
Wow. And to be a guide for that journey is quite profound. I would imagine people feel incredibly grateful and empowered when they're given that opportunity. And within, not even a therapy setting, or it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
something I can embody. Um,
Yeah.
how does this, just if I can ask personally, how does
Yeah.
this for you? Like, so is there anything that you can't fix in your life that you've
Mm.
finally got to that level where you're like, oh, this is actually exactly what I needed?
So, such a great question because I'm always evaluating myself. I'm like my end number one. I'm always like trying things on myself. I tried the injections for vitamins on myself. I do everything. I like actually switching to this membership platform has taken a lot of trust because I knew I needed to do something different because I didn't want to be just a prescriber. Even if it
Mhm.
was just hormone therapy, I didn't want to be just like come in for 30 minutes and just give me your hormones. And like, I really want to go on a journey. And so it took a lot of courage to step into that and say, okay, I'm trusting that the universe we're going to bring the people that are a really good match to really do something meaningful.
Yeah,
Because the more people that are living their truth, that is rippling out to the world right now. And right now, that's what we need is more people living in their loving, like highest state.
yeah,
That's the ripple we need to put out. So I'm just show it. So I am actively practicing this too. To stay in balance in the form is going to yoga. Like I do Ashtanga, is going like doing now it's winter. So I just like why this is so big with the Constitution. I realized this just recently. My nervous system was getting I was getting really not panicky, but like anxious around like yeah volume of work things that and I couldn't self-regulate and I realized like I'm a vata, which means I'm someone who's very dry. It can naturally more dry constitution. So I need wet, like humid things. And so going to the hot springs became not like a luxury, but it was actually essential. It changed my whole disposition. And then I went and bought a membership to the gym to start swimming. And now
mm,
that I got in the water, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's it. It
wow,
was it, and so that then changed the emotions are tools, like, don't just suppress them with medication or whatever, like, use the tool, though. I'm not anti-medication, I prescribe this stuff, but I'm also very much a bridge,
see them
very
as
much
little signals.
they're signals, so
Mhm.
especially with the balance. The more that I study Ayurveda, I think, is the science of life. Ayurveda is like the science of life, which
Mhm.
really, when I read the ancient texts, it's the science of longevity, but it's the science of immortality. It gets pretty spiritual and pretty deep. It's very, very
Wow.
esoteric and fun. But I mean, people are really thriving, like sexually into their hundreds, like with
Oh
the
my God.
vitality of 20-year-olds. So that's like what I'm doing with my patients. Like I have 80-year-olds that are very like sexually active and
Yeah,
they want to stay that is more life force energy. So that's
yeah.
where that stuff comes. But I'm like living it. That's I think the difference with my patients is they see that like I am so actively living this.
Yeah.
I don't just talk about it. Like that's why it means so much to me. It's like, okay, the food matters. Your every thought matters. Like I have patients that have like we're working through like not making poor deals in the stock market. Like I had patients that lost like multi millions, and when we dug into the reason why, they didn't feel good enough in their father's eyes, so they pushed another million. If I make one more million, and they lost it all. So us to
Mhm.
get back, so as we're working on the biomarkers that were inflammatory, that were also from their mindset, so I could track the biomarkers. This is what gets fun about bridging the mind and the science. So I'll track the biomarkers, the lab, the blood work, and then but then we work on the deeper layers, and like this is how I get to, but I'm also working these all out myself. What limiting beliefs like do I have? But
Yeah.
so I can translate that with patients.
How do you, so somebody that might be coming to you that says, well, I don't know how to even, I guess I'll back up. Do you teach meditation? Because often people aren't even aware of the thoughts that are coming through their minds. So how do you help people? And you live in Boulder, so I know a lot of people probably already are, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some people that are like, well, I'm not even really aware of what's floating through there on a
Yeah.
daily.
So that's like I think starting with really watching your emotions and just starting to slow down and starting with the breath, because this is something I constantly work on, because I was a shallow breather, not wanting to make a sound, not wanting to disrupt the pool. I don't want to disrupt, I want everyone to be safe and okay. So, but I would be not breathing.
Yeah.
So I think if people start having awareness of their breath and just start to pay attention, what thoughts are coming through when they meet someone, when they do something, especially when there's judgment involved, because it can be very, very subtle. And if you
Mm,
can start to catch your judgment, if you're doing it externally, you're likely doing it internally.
mm,
So, and then you can start to be neutral. Can I be completely non-judgmental and just look at things objectively? That's it,
yeah.
because judgment becomes a choice. And so if I'm judging something, then what is my deeper belief system? I'm not good enough. I didn't do a good job. Like you were usually like internally self-attacking.
Hmm.
So it's just start to slow down
Yeah.
and just slow with your breath. And you can even be in a rut, like you can have things to do, but just slow your breath down. Like if you like, I think Mr. Rogers did this. He's so great. He taught kids how to like be still for a minute,
Hmm.
just 1 minute. So I tell my patients that are so my CEOs that are so busy, I'm like, just 1 minute. Just sit
Yeah.
there. Just put your no and it feels like an eternity. Like when I have 1 minute to not actually do anything, it feels like an ocean of
Yeah.
like breath. And it becomes like the more you practice this, it becomes you get pretty turned on. You know what I mean? Like your breath becomes sexy. Like you
Mm,
become pretty like aroused in a way of joy just by breathing, because it's like you can feel it. Especially if you're highly sensitive. If you have a highly tuned, if you're someone who can really be sensitive to the room, then this stuff becomes very easy to and like enjoyable to
yeah.
practice.
I can feel that as you talk about it,
I know.
and I love that. I love that it's so simple. There's so many practices out there. Read this book and 10 steps to this, and you're talking about the breath. You're talking about
Yeah.
something everyone right now that's listening can tune into this and just give
Mhm.
themselves a minute.
Mhm.
We're breathing and 1 minute. That's something we can all do
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
a world that might open up by doing those
Mhm.
things. Sounds to me in the way you work with your patients can be quite transformative.
Yeah. It's that simple. We overcomplicate health. We overcomplicate the body. But it
Yeah.
is complicated. I do have to say, it's like blows my mind.
Hmm. So in some of your work, you actually spoke about studying with Mitra Manesh, and his
Mhm.
work called, for those that are familiar with it or maybe not, it's called "Change Your Question, Change Your Life." And you said that that was something that was really fundamental for you in shifting how you think. So, how did learning to change the question not the behavior, not the body, just reshape your way of understanding healing. How did that change of the question shift everything for you?
So she was so pivotal in this. And a lot of teachers, can there's many ways to get in. There's so many teachers that will show you the way in, but she really helped to identify the deepest questions that she thinks that most people go through are. And I've seen this again. Mitra was just one person, but she's an amazing meditation teacher from UCLA, from Southern California, just phenomenal. um am I good enough? Do I belong?
Yeah.
Am I going to be loved? Will I be rejected? And when you start to really think about that, like think about your motivation for anything that you do or anything that you say, you start to look at, oh, what's the actual root? Like this is truly looking at the root cause. So I realized, because I've been studying functional medicine, that was always my biggest question. What is the root? Where are we going for? Like, and I realized that every habit that we take, it's not about the education at some point. We all know, like, soup, warm, and it's going to be a little bit better for us, especially in the winter, like warmer, hopefully, like, that we see that, like warm, like right now, that's constitution wise, we should be eating warm, nourishing foods and not a lot of cold constitution. But the idea of the deeper root question, that if you just slow down and really get, like, there is one, and it really comes from usually something in your nervous system that developed really young, where
Mm,
you felt like you weren't ever seen. You could have the most wealthy, beautiful, amazing parents, but they're not there for you. They're physically away. And maybe this actually happens a lot with parents, or children of physicians,
yeah,
people in the
yeah, yeah,
healthcare setting, because
for
they're
sure.
busy. Parents, I
The
know.
I even just as you said that, I a fraction of a second before it, I think a lot of my motivation, which is irony of it though, is that I really am an introvert, so I don't want to be seen, but when I am, I want it to be true. I want it
Yeah,
to be a true meeting, not a distracted meeting.
yeah,
And so I think what an incredible thing for everyone that's listening right now, to even just go throughout the rest of your day and ask, what is the primary motivation? Is that the question that you tend to have people, your patients, ask? And what is motivating
yeah.
them?
Really looking at what is the deepest layer, and then go back and rewrite that story. There's, like, I think a recent book that I read that's a great way to outline this process. And again, there are many ways to do this, but Code to Joy is a book.
Joy.
Code to Joy. One of my patients recommended this as a book that she was using, and I thought this was really sweet. A great simple way to look at your nervous system, of what these limiting beliefs are, because they can be so subtle.
Mm,
The book is really great, going through a lot of stories where people that were, yeah, like, had fears around driving on bridges, and couldn't figure out why, or fears around strangers, there's a lot of subtle things that happen, even if you had a wonderful childhood, but you could have
yeah,
these slightly, adverse events that were traumatizing. You don't maybe realize them as trauma, but they really set up your nervous system to be in fear.
yeah, yeah.
And so you always want to ask, if you're having a fear or a judgment or a hesitation, like, what is it, real or not? Like, just like, I know there's another great book, another great author that I love is Galvin de Becker, The
Mm.
Gift of Fear.
Oh wow, I love the title.
Yeah, this was given, my aunt, who was a social worker, would give this to all her staff who would do house calls,
Mm,
because that book is Galvin de Becker he is a consult to celebrities or to presidents, people that have threats against them, because
mhm.
he thinks you can tell the difference between a real and a perceived threat. And
Oh,
he developed that because he was severely beat as a child.
yeah.
And he could tell before his father even got home what he was going to get beat with. And so
Wow.
he developed this. So that's another thing too. Like, what if the very thing you can't fix saves your life? So that experience, though, gave him this crazy intuitive skill
Mm,
that
mm,
made him who he is.
wow.
So this is a practice of non-judgment, not that we agree that beating your children is a good thing. We have boundaries and we make movements to not ever let that. Our goal is to unravel our unconscious beliefs that are guiding us, and that so we can stop the pattern of trauma.
Hmm. Wow. That's
But that book, so finding the difference between what is true, what is a real threat or not, because you have to understand your fears, because you can have a fear of something and that's coming from an unconscious belief that you're not safe. And
hmm
so that's why people can be a little bit scared, especially us that are highly intuitive. We can be a little bit afraid when we go into a new room because there's so much energy. And it can be
yeah.
so much that because we have been unsafe, that we can't, usually there's a trauma, we've been unsafe, we're highly sensitive, we go into a room, new energy, we don't know the difference. And so if
Oh,
you,
yeah.
mhm,
I was
that
going to say, this has been such an important practice for me with living with the dizziness,
that's
because I'm not going to fall over. I'm not going to die. It's in a really weird experience that I have all the time. But what it took, and it took 7 years, but it took me to finally tell my brain I'm safe. And
mhm,
did all the dizziness didn't go away, but
yeah,
all the other exaggerating anxiety that brought the dizziness even to a higher
yeah,
level went away. As soon as my brain said, "I right now I'm dizzy," but my brain's not at all afraid anymore, and so that
mhm,
um, it can change everything.
yeah,
But it doesn't necessarily change the biology. I mean, it can. I mean, so yes, I'm not having the like cortisol dumps anymore, but the dizziness hasn't gone away. So how do you work with patients that are like, I've done everything right. I'm safe now. I feel compassion
yeah.
towards myself, and I'm still sick, or I still have this disease. And you said you do all the inflammation markers and hormone markers. You're able to like track all of this as your
Yeah.
patient progress. Do you see these cases where it's like, okay, you've made some major progress and you're still sick?
So I'm not done yet believe giving, because I feel like now Ayurveda is a whole new level. So
Mm,
for you, this is Vata. And you're
mhm.
definitely Vata because you've got creative
Oh, yeah.
energy in the mind for sure. And so
That's
I
why
would
I'm
say,
older.
yeah, so I would go to like, and especially it's winter now for you for sure. You need like heat and oil, and you need to be like so nurtured your nervous system.
Yeah.
So like water is going to be so important for you. Like to stay in that. Luckily it's like humid, with Oregon, it's a little bit wetter,
Oh,
more wet.
it feels like somebody described it the other day. It's like Boulder. Actually, it was interesting. I'm reading this book by another patient who has a dizzy disorder, and she lives in Boulder. And she said when she moved there, it felt like the light there never gave her a break. It was
So oh my gosh,
dagger.
this is that's why I can't, like, the environment is so valuable,
Yeah.
that where you live, and to understand that with constitution, this is just coming. I'm formally studying Ayurveda, so I'm just integrating this in within the last 4 month 5 month 4 months.
Hmm.
So I just am getting this nether level of what it means for functional medicine and for health. So I think when I read your story, I was like, oh my gosh, Hervata, let's work on getting that fat, like getting medicated ghee, that like panchakarma is like, I think it's called panchakola. Panchakola is an Ayurvedic ghee for vata,
Hmm.
like licorice as well. And then cleaning out the blood. So now I think about it as channels. So something is in your channel is blocked, or that it's like creating that dizziness, like something is not stable. They say everything in Ayurveda is a blocked channel. Any disease is because of that. So your true prana, your true flow, your true essence of who you are, it the idea is that it can be allowed to flow freely and you're in freedom. Now, if
Hmm.
you do, this is tricky though, if you do have something genetically, so say you're born with a genetic, mutation, and you end up having Downs, or you end up having, so
Or a
these are
bowel
all,
issue.
yeah, exactly. And so this is though an opportunity where you'd still, In this form, what is your highest flow state as well? Flow state as in, can you still get the channels as open as possible?
Yeah, and for me, I'll continue. It's this is my own personal path, but as soon
Mm-hmm.
as the like, oh, I better try this now, it's aggression. It's some sort of, it's like surrender is always the answer for me. And to the
Yep.
biggest oh I experience in my life with more joy and more grace than I've ever felt is living with this dizziness. And
Yep.
that truly is the most flow and the most stillness, if you can believe it. Within this movement that I feel the most stillness by just letting it be. And so
Mm,
teacher really continues to be like, and sure, if something comes along and one day it's like, boop, done, yay, that's awesome. But I have some sort of my predisposition of whenever I get
mm-hmm.
into what if I did this and then it got better, it just feels like aggression to my brain
Yeah.
somehow. So I just want to leave open that possibility that sometimes, like Rachel Naomi Remen says, as a physician, I finally realized that not everything can be cured. Sometimes things need to just be held.
Mm-hmm.
That
I like
holding,
that.
the holding doesn't mean it's going to go away, but it is profoundly transformative because I am profoundly transformed by surrendering to this. Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense. That's it. So I was gonna leave that space and say at the end, ultimately, it's because it allows you to be so present and still. So there's something beautiful. Yes, we could look at the channels. I agree. And like, yes, maybe do that. But also this of your what this gives you to not to because especially in this United States, this pushing for I'm not enough, I got to do more things. And it's tricky because we want to do things. We get excited. Avata can get a lot of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but the dizziness is forcing you to go way down
Yeah.
and be very, very still and the magic of your body.
Yeah. Yes, that's really well said. I love how you just said that. And speaking of the body, I have a question about that because before you were a physician, you actually did work directly with bodies as a massage.
Hmm.
So before you had sort of the medical language and all the labs, um, what were bodies teaching you then? That and how did that kind of early knowing guide you in what you're doing now? And I know we've kind of been talking about this all around, but specifically, what were you gathering from your work pre
Yeah.
medical training?
Yeah. I was in my 20s living in Lake Tahoe. And I moved from Boulder to Lake Tahoe and was thinking I wanted to get back to school. I knew I wanted to do something integrative with medicine. And so I just took this little massage class, and then I realized like, okay, there's something to this, to the body. Like back then you could feel like something. There was this sort of spiritual energetic side to pathology, because
Mm,
we would study with blindfolds on, and they would tell us just go to where the pain is, and we would immediately go to where the body was having an issue. So you learned how to get so sensitive with your hands to like figure out where things were held. And when you were working on someone, then you could see the release. And to get massage every day for 8 months
oh,
is like profound. So I tell couples when they retire, I'm like, if you want something to do, go to massage school together.
oh, that's a
It is
great
so
idea.
it's so profound. Like, go take 6 months and go to massage school. It's so beautiful. You learn a lot about yourself and about how you hold. I learned about holding patterns. We talked about Feldenkrais, about how you can do self-care. You really I learned about my body, and I learned about how I was holding tension, and I didn't even realize. And then the emotions around that, and the spiritual side around then the energetic centers with chakras, and then Reiki. So I would always be doing energy work on people, and it would work. Like I would see changes in people. So it just stirred up, but then my mind to say, okay, I want to go more into the science of this and bridge the gap. And that's what kind of got me going. But it was my own journey of knowing that I wanted to, like, what is the body, I think, on this deeper layer about, like, how do we physically, it's more like the application. I wanted to actually see it and feel it.
Yeah.
You can be enough in your head. You can spend all I love doing this. My favorite, I mean, conferences, medical conferences, or reading all day, like ancient texts and medical texts, is like super fun. I just love that. But the application, and so self-care, self-massage, like it, and doing it with others really took me to another level.
Yeah. Wow.
It was so profound. It was so beautiful. People would just change, and I love doing it. I would spend 2 hours. I could spend 3 hours in a massage session. That was like my preferred time, is to really go with someone, really let go.
Yeah.
And then now studying Marma points. So Marma are energetic points on your body, which got this is what got me studying into Ayurveda, besides just yoga. But Marma points are what they call neurovascular cupping, where the nerve and the blood vessel meet, and they're all over the body. So actually, the helmets that I'm making to help reverse dementia and Alzheimer's are also pointed on specific places on these energetic points that other helmets don't necessarily do. So I you can hit these points and bring about a very big sense of calm for the body and like realignment.
Wow. And this is
And if
different.
you're
The meridian points, like, would you
this
say?
so they're very similar. Very they oh so and the in the text that I have, they say some of the points are not quite in alignment, but I really think they're just it's the same, just different language. It's the same thing. I really think
Yeah.
they're pretty much the same, or they're different levels of it or different depths of it, but it's the same thing of understanding our electromagnetic body that we
Mhm.
don't always talk about. But that's why yoga is so great, because you're actually stretching these points, because they're under the fascial layers, they're physical points. So you're having it, and to create a systemic response,
Mhm.
that's why it's so important, a practice of even doing some poses. But if you really, Kimberly, if you really want to know, like, the how deep you can go with this, like, just because I live in Colorado, so people are very explorative here, and they can understand what this means. But the DMT molecule that is coming from your pineal gland, so you can have an experience of that from your marma points. You naturally can do that. That's
Mhm.
always We always have this endogenously anyways. Like, that's the whole point. You use a substance or plant, to help you stimulate what is already inside. It's already
Mhm.
there. It's not the thing. It just helps stimulate. So you can do that then with Marma points. That means you can bring this all serenity to you by self-care or having someone else. But understanding that layer
Yeah.
of the body, of the healing, has been just super fun.
I
Fun.
know you love this stuff.
So fun. I
Have you
know.
always been this way? I mean, even as a little girl, this sort of this curiosity between and bridging,
Mhm.
separate worlds and trying to pull them together. Because I'm imagining, even when you went to medical school, some part of you had to be sacrificed in order to go through all the
Yeah.
rigors of academia.
Yeah, thanks for acknowledging that, because a lot of my I have an amazing, friends and colleagues from residency that we're still on group text together. But I was such an outsider. I am such an outsider for them, just to be talking about nutrition, talking about they would always ask me, why am I talking to my patients for so long? Because
Mm,
I would talk about resistant hypertension that had to do with the job that they were not actually, like, that was not right for them, or that they were being, there was like racism involved in their, they weren't standing up for themselves, and that was causing, stress. So um I've always been curious, and I got really spiritual when I was young, a teenager, just questioning, what are we doing here?
mm,
And so I've always had this, like, curiosity with science, and then spirituality, and trying to figure out, and now it's just getting super fun. So I sort of, got on the spiritual path in my 20s, and then really got to embody that and feel like that, and then I sort of put it away, even though I was secretly studying, like, Like in Chicago, I was doing like rotations at Cook County Hospital for trauma surgery, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the what they call the knife and gun club, where a lot of
Yeah,
violence in
yeah.
the city. And so, but then that was nighttime, and then during the day, I'd be studying like how to read people's energetic fields, like how to.
You and my dad would have gotten along. I mean,
I
he was
know,
he,
but
he was a
I
full-on heart surgeon, Midwestern 80s, doing all the stitching, of the hearts and the bypasses. But during the day, his favorite part of the job would be to go do his round, and he would do hands-on. He would
I
just
know,
kneel down, put his hands on the patients, and he would talk about breathing with them. And
yes,
just he that was what he loved. And I sometimes think he was doing more healing during
yeah,
those that hands-on contact than when he had his
yeah.
hands inside the chest cavity stitching things.
I bet he was praying for them. I bet he was putting his intention when he was in the OR. I bet that
Mhm.
he was, because I don't think patients realize how much, at least, I mean, I pray. I like am sending energy, and I actually, I mean, now that I'm just being candid here, I mean, when I started even to send them a bill, I'm like, may you be loved, and may you be, and just to put that energy out there to them at every second you get. It's just I don't know that like patients always realize that. So your dad, no doubt, was praying for them and
Yeah.
sending them love on the table
And he
for
was holding
healing.
reverence. I witnessed him perform surgery once, and he held such magical reverence for what he was doing. It never felt mechanical. Like I even remember him
Mm,
holding the heart and looking
yeah.
over it once. And I was like, oh, he's not performing right now. He's like showing me, like, look at the incredible organ that
Yeah.
creates, and
I
look what it's
know.
about to do. And that sort of reverence was very, very palpable, even as a little girl, and I was more caught up in my own life. So I have a question. You said
Mhm.
when you were younger, you would even ask, like, what are we doing here? I'm curious, when we talk about what sort of those core wounds or those core fundamental questions, was there, by asking that question, was that a way for you to find a belonging? Like, where did that question come from? And did,
Yeah.
by asking that question, make you feel like you belong to something bigger? I don't know. I'm just kind of formulating this right now as I was thinking, but like, such a big question for a young person to be asking. And I was wondering, like, what that brought to you by asking it.
Yes, this is so good. And there's I think two stages of this question, because I've asked myself this, that got answered when I was in my 40, like mid late early 40. I'm still in my 40s. But it was like early 40s when I understood even more so about what was happening in my 20s or my teens. So I started asking all these questions, and I came to Christianity.
Mm,
And so I started, and I got really deep into being born again, and I felt viscerally a love that I cannot describe, and a sense of love and belonging and like forgiveness. And I didn't realize it until and later until and I got very and this was so powerful for me. I wanted to become a missionary to tell people like what this is amazing. And
wow.
then I found a lot of hypocrisy in the church, and I got turned off by like that programming
Yeah.
and the separation that you have to be this. And I don't think that was like the message of Christ. I think that
Yeah.
he had a very much deeper message about this is within you. We are all divine. And so I shifted the way that I think about that. It wasn't until I was in my 40s that I realized that I had an inner belief that felt like I was wrong, that I did something wrong, like that I
Mm,
was ashamed of. And so my father died when I was young. I was like 1. And when you're a child, you do make up this thing that you think you were part of the problem. But my mother was like, so that was like the love of her life, so she was very, very, very depressed. And I was, always felt like I just wanted her to be well, and I wanted her to feel like love. And so when I felt like it wasn't my fault, when I felt this, that but I didn't come to realize this until later, that that was a limiting belief that I had that my mind had made up,
Right.
that this was like a big thing, or that, we come in with these things that we're not good enough, or these could also, this is like sometimes I'm open to the idea of us in this lifetime having these challenges, like in art and astrology. In a Vedic astrology, you're going to have these chirons, you're going to have these opportunities that are placed in your chart, and they seem to sort of line up sometimes, which is sort of
Mm,
interesting. So mine was on this worth and value. This was like an opportunity that I've had, that I've like throughout my life been having to look at. And so when I had this feeling like I am enough and that I am loved, I am just, I was like, holy, this is like, it was so tangible. People can really get like, I think the born again's got really
yeah.
strong visceral sensations from it. It's real energy. It's a
Yeah.
real, and Christ, like forgiveness is really real. I think that there's something too.
Yeah.
All of this.
And it's no
So
wonder
that's
that you
like,
share that with everyone. And when you first felt that, you were like, I want everyone to feel this.
I know. I was like, this is life is so beautiful. It's so loving, because when you can start to feel like you are not wrong, like you're not, kind of like Barbara Brene Brown, excuse me, talks
Yeah.
about, being, you're either bad or you feel bad. You feel like you are bad or you're bad or something around, those lines. So
Hmm.
just when you can just realize there's a judgment in there, realize what that question is, and then really address that and
Yeah.
hold yourself and let go, because I don't think that is, I think that we are meant to be in joy,
Mm.
and that's what forgiveness is so powerful, by gratitude is so powerful, and that whatever happens in our life is like an opportunity to really to really be in present form, so that we can be in our highest state, which is joy and freedom. And if we're not there, like there just has to be some stillness or something. Maybe it is a slowing down, very, 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 very extra slow. So we're not dizzy in our life and we're not like over. So it's like being very aware though individually what that looks like.
Wow. So your question, what are we doing here, ultimately led you to this profound sense of love and forgiveness. And on the flip side of that, this feeling that somehow you were the problem and that you had done
Hmm.
wrong. So what a powerful healing. And mine is very similar to yours. And I would even say the words, just like it could be as simple as, am I okay? And I think that is going back to medicine now, just so we can bridge this. If my core question is, am I okay? Which was definitely a message from, the utero of like, should I be here? Because,
Yeah.
daddy isn't ready.
Yes.
And the messaging of, my mom, she made it very clear. She said, I never wanted to abort you. But I think even just the fact that she thought that, she was thinking, why is she here? So if
Yeah.
the core question is, am I okay? Then now it makes so much sense to me. I finally understand
Hmm.
gender is my answer,
Yeah.
because it is basically saying, yes, you're okay, exactly as you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
any try to intervene with that, like, oh, I better fix, or I better grow, or I better self-actualize, it reads to my system as I'm not okay. Does that make
And that
sense?
it absolutely does. And that's the biggest, I think, commerce opportunity that especially the United States takes advantage
Yeah.
or things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think we froze a little bit. So that is the more that we can step back and actually feel like, yes, I okay, no matter what is going on, no matter
Mm.
where we're at in our life, and practice. That's why the practice of non-judgment is the most powerful things. Non-judgment and compassion, because then you can be unwavering because you're not thrown, you know the truth. This
Mhm.
is a divine play that at the end of the day, what I've come to realize is like this is divinity expressing itself in form.
Mm.
And we are all that. And so we are all of this divine form. So the more that we can put love, especially in times like these when there's turmoil, put more love out there, because if someone is acting out of a place that is painful or destructive, they're doing so because there's some inner question that is, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, and they're seeking this attention.
Hmm.
Love, like we have to be putting more love into the world of this divine, the divine expression of that, of love, which is just, so the more that we practice non-judgment and compassion, have boundaries, that doesn't mean we accept what is going on. We don't accept negativity, we don't put up boundaries for around people that we know affect us, around
Yeah.
things that affect us. You still, but you can be compassionate and loving and not have the judgment that will then throw you off and make you be
Yeah.
imbalanced. Hmm.
Such an incredible message, Leah. I mean, your work is very transformative for your patients, and even everything you've shared today with us here. I feel sort of a shimmering in the air.
Hmm.
I, I find I want to, end this with just asking, are there ways or visions that you have to bring this more into the world, or do you have a vision for what this looks
Hmm.
like for all the people that are even listening?
Yes, there's so much. So I definitely am gonna write. This is it. And public speaking. So I'm speaking at an event. You should meet me in West Palm Beach. So West Palm Beach, there's an event, if I can pull it up. If anyone is in Florida right now, West Palm Beach at the oldest wellness um, retreat center in the United States. It's 70 years old. But there's a festival on Saturday that I'm
Oh,
gonna go,
this
that I'm
Saturday?
speaking at. Yeah, this Saturday.
Wow.
I know.
So if anybody's listening and you're near West Palm Beach, join.
Yes.
What's the conference called?
So I'm looking at the Wellness Retreat Center.
While you're
And
looking
it's
at it,
like,
I'll read something that, oh my gosh, hi Anne, I love Anne, and she just mentioned here, which I think is a really cool distinction. She said, for me, you're starting to touch on the difference between the two broadest types of meditation: Vedic tradition, which is transcending oneself, versus mindfulness tradition, which is a focusing on the thoughts of the self, which I is brilliant. That's like, that is a cool distinction between the two approaches, and I think that there's a place for them to meet in the middle, or maybe we
I think
just.
so too. I think so too, because you can't transcend unless you're aware.
Mhm,
You have
mhm.
to have
Yeah,
awareness. That's why mindfulness, I think, is like the number one place, like perfect place to start, to be
yeah.
still. And to do that, work the breath to be still. And I do think, and if you can't be still, use a mantra. I am, that I am, or whatever works for you. There's anything is a mantra, but know that mantras are freaking sacred little symbols. Everything is vibration. So the electromagnetic side of your body, this is why your thoughts are so important. But Vedic tradition, I mean, it gets crazy interesting. It was all everything is vibration. It was all a point to help your body be in alignment so that source could come through. You could transcend. Transcend, but that means live this life in divine play
Yeah, yeah.
as an expression of yourself. So you get to do what you get to create, you get to create what you want, but your desires at this point are not out of greed. So you're
Mhm.
not gonna, versus our desires out of ego, out of insecurity, are what is kind of got our country globally in this, where we're at, because your desires are coming from greed and ego,
Yeah.
versus coming from pure source. You can still have wealth and abundance. This is all part of the Vedics. It is there, and freedom, all these things come, but your desires, when they're more pure from that pure state, that's where it's a different kind of state they're going to be. But to get their mindfulness, but the vibration, a mantra could be a sacred tone. It's like a lock and a key. It's like a key to unlock your nervous system to be calm and be still.
Mhm.
Hanuman. And so they're not about chanting to a god. It's not about a god. And that was the biggest thing that I've learned and distinguished, is that this is not about giving away your power to another god. There's no gurus besides yourself. But you're not even there. That's not you as a self. It is like the divine self expressing itself through the form.
Mhm.
If you've read Eckhart Tolle, like how he differentiated the self versus the non-self. So that's the key. If you can think about that, that's where we are. Like this is the I. You're an experience in the form, but the true self is just this expression of infinite space and time,
Yeah, and an infinite possibility. And
and,
it
and
has
all possibilities. Yeah,
playfulness. The word playfulness wants to come in as you're talking. It's sort of like the differentiation when it moves from the egoic greed versus the manifestation that comes through just being in creative play with the life force. It has a lighter quality to it that feels a little bit like play to me.
I think so too. And so if you can ask yourself really where the desire is coming from, is it insecurity? Is there a deeper inner question? That's why understanding your inner question.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it is like I am one with I am source, like I am the divine expression of source, that's a very different, and that's a different bringing of your desire of what you want to create in this world versus like, oh, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I need to have this. If I have this thing, I will be good enough. If I will have this house, if you start comparing yourself to someone else, you start looking at them and then you feel insecure. You start looking at someone like, oh, they look so beautiful. I want to. If you start playing with all these games in your mind, then and thinking that you're not good enough just who you are, then your desires are going to be from that insecurity.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you got to be
totally.
very careful because that is like Gabor Mate would say, that's the hungry ghost
Yeah, yeah.
that you're never was. That's why greed and why like you could have I've seen this, executives, multi million dollar. You are never enough, or your partner is never enough. The most beautiful partner that you have, but if you feel like you're never enough, like you're never enough, she will never be enough. She will never be able to feed that, and that's where infidelity will come in.
Yeah, yeah.
They're like
So
you could.
core questions are everything. This is
Mhm.
so you're going to be talking about this weekend.
Yeah, so the long answer. So the things I'm gonna do, I wanna write. So I want to create. So I'm doing this membership for. I'm super excited about switching over from a fee for service to a year long. So I'm doing a very small program, capping it just so I can a very intimate thing where we can then go track labs, like, as we need, have longer appointments, really have a really, that's gonna be practice. And then I am starting a research institute to work on reversing dementia, and
Mm.
Parkinson's, cognitive decline. So I have received a grant. I'm working on the 501(c)(3). So I'm really excited. So if
Wow.
anyone does have like they're inspired to put money towards this, like truly, like this is really they'll be able to funnel that through the
Yeah.
501(c)(3). Because this is my other big thing. I recently learned with cognitive decline that it's reversible. And if
Mm.
you've ever dealt with
Yeah.
it in a family member, it is a nightmare. So I do have a little bit of an urgency to get that done, to get that started, because I don't want people to be declining.
So
So
will you be sharing this information on your Substack, or where can people follow, all your updates?
yeah, I think that's I going to Substack is what my desire is. So I'm really trying to create space right now to be able to do Substack. I think start the writing there and
Yeah,
start sharing information and you know, getting protocols sort of up and out this way.
perfect.
Um, yeah. So please, if you have questions, please, like anyone, like I just
Yeah.
feel
Yes,
free to reach
Leah's
out.
signed up now on Substack, and I think you shared a few things, but this is early stage for you here. So join in and follow Leah so that you can, learn more about what she's doing and stay engaged, because you're right on the edge of some really, really
Yeah.
fascinating work and transformative work for this planet, stuff that we all need right now. So
Yeah.
in your heart and your presence, been just
Mm,
very enriching to be with you today.
thank you so much. Same. I feel the same with you. And with
Mm,
everyone, lots of love, just putting lots of energy and love to everyone that's listening. May
mm,
you, your families, everything around everyone that's listening be clear and just be full of abundance, like knowing who you are, really be held by the universe. Everyone feel that. And may
mm.
that just trickle out to everyone around in their lives. Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Thank you.
mm, so much love.
Bye.
So much love. Bye. Bye, everyone.